It's been described as a scandal as big as PPI, and it's prompting a flood of complaints from angry homeowners across the BBC Tees region. They're facing spiralling costs because of a nationwide practice which has been called Fleecehold. Now, this is where homeowners of new homes, that is, are charged fees for the upkeep of communal areas on the estates where they live.
Yeah, we're going to hear live from Bishop Auckland MP Helen Goodman on this in a moment. But first, campaigners from Homeowners' Rights Network are pushing for a change to the law to deal with all of this. Now, Halima Ali is from that campaign group.
Yeah, it's absolutely outrageous what's going on. I mean, we've gathered so much data already. We've had 500 estates contacting us so far. And so far, our campaign, we're representing 90,000 homes. We're sold a dream, aren't we, when we go into a show home? You know, everything seems straightforward, but it's when you get down to the nitty-gritty details, that is absolutely mind-boggling. Most homeowners, they're finding themselves, after a few years, after the developer has left the development, that the service charge, it just starts to rise, and there seems to be no limit. And it's not explained clearly in our deeds that this could happen. They're feeling scammed, they're feeling vulnerable. The big developers, they're typically implementing this model, and is nothing short of legalised robbery on a national scale.
Halima Ali there from the Homeowners' Rights Network. Let's chat now to the Bishop Auckland MP Helen Goodman. Good morning, Mrs Goodman.
Hello.
Good morning. So just start off, first of all, by just explaining to us why this is such an important issue to you. I mean, have you had a lot of complaints from people in your constituency?
I have. There have been hundreds of new houses built in and around Bishop, and I have had on half a dozen different estates. And the situations, the detail varies, but the basic problem is the same. They're being overcharged. The charges, they have no control over them. The charges are rising, and the services of looking after the public areas are not given to a proper standard. So it is the rip-off to end all rip-offs, really.
I'm sorry if this puts you on the spot here, but do we know kind of how much? Can you give us a price range of how much people are being charged for this kind of thing?
Well, in our neck of the woods, it's sort of like 120, 200 quid a year. But in some parts of the country, it might be £600 a year. I've had emails, when I've raised this in Parliament, it's attracted attention from around the country. And then I've had emails from, you know, as far away as Ulster and Scotland, with people with massive service fees.
And what are you telling them, Mrs Goodman?
Well, what I'm saying is that we need to have a change in the law. And I introduced a 10-minute rule bill which would cap and regulate the fees. It would require the companies to manage the shared spaces to a proper standard, perhaps with an ombudsman to oversee it, and that it would give residents the power to opt out of the management company in a developer if that's what they wanted to do.
So who's getting the money? Is it the builders then, or is it the people who own the land effectively?
What happens is that the builders sell the public area spaces on to other companies, and it's those other companies that are getting the money. And I mean, they're raking in millions, absolutely millions every year.
Can we just read this? This has come in from Amy this morning, who says, I'm excited to see actually you're covering the Fleecehold scandal, as Amy describes it. I'm an Auckland resident here on an estate that we pay the equivalent of over £32,000 annually for cutting grass. Obviously, when you add all of that money together, our average council tax is £226 per annum. So that's Amy, who's clearly not very happy at something that she's happy that you're highlighting it this morning, Helen.
Yes, well, that's typical of the kind of letters that I've been getting.
Right.
So, you know, people put together 250 houses and £30,000 is being raised. Now, what some of the people in Bishop have found is that they can find somebody to mow the grass for them and do all the work, and maybe that costs £5,000 or £6,000, but the management companies refuse to let them self-manage it. And when they go through their bills and say, well, you know, what are we paying for? The administration, the so-called administration, can often be as much, if not more, than the actual grass cutting.
Right. It is very different in so much as PPI, you know, there was an admittance that it was a huge, massive issue, a scandal, as you claim. And the reality is it's very different in this case. People can't claim their money back by any means yet, can they?
No, because they don't have any rights, which is why we need to change the law. But I think there has been mis-selling. And the reason I think there's been mis-selling in this case is that often when people buy plots or houses on new estates, the developer recommends to them a solicitor. Now, obviously, if you're buying a house, you want the solicitor whom you pay to be acting for you. But I am strongly of the view that these solicitors are really in the pockets of the developers. Wow. And they're not acting for the purchaser. They are conflicted and they're taking account of the interests of the seller, and they're not alerting the purchaser to these problems and difficulties.
Right.
It's difficult, isn't it? I mean, I know you were saying that you want to raise this in Parliament, and I know that you will, but you haven't had the chance so far. Is that linked to Brexit?
I have raised it. I've made 2 speeches about it, but the government haven't introduced any legislation. And of course, that is a Brexit problem because so much focus and attention is having to be dragged into Brexit that there isn't the time or capacity to do anything else. But
you're going to carry on and you're not going to let this drop, are you?
No, I'm not. And I think the next thing I'm going to do is write to the Financial Conduct Authority to find out, to explore this mis-selling aspect of it.
Helen, thank you so much for joining us and talking us through that this morning. That is Helen Goodman, the MP for Bishop Auckland. Listen, if this story has affected you, if you're sat there and you're thinking, God, that's me, then do get in touch with us because we'd love to hear your stories on this and we will follow your stories. Get in touch with us on 08000 85 95 95. That's our free phone number this morning, and any updates that we get as Helen continues fighting this in Parliament, we'll bring you first here on BBC Tees.